cold December morning settled over Peppa Pig's house, but something felt terribly wrong. The family sat around the breakfast table in complete silence, staring blankly at their empty plates. No Christmas decorations adorned the walls, no tree stood in the corner, and no festive music played. Peppa looked around the house with growing confusion and dread. The calendar on the wall showed December 25th, but nobody seemed to remember what this date meant. Her parents moved like sleepwalkers, going through their daily routines without any joy or recognition of the special day. Outside, the entire neighborhood appeared equally lifeless and forgotten. No Christmas lights twinkled in windows, no wreaths hung on doors, and no children played with new toys in their gardens. The world had somehow erased Christmas from existence, leaving only an empty void where celebration should be. At playgroup, Miss Rabbit taught the children about ordinary winter days, never mentioning Christmas, Santa, or presents. The other children sat motionless, their eyes vacant and their smiles forced. When Peppa tried to mention Christmas, everyone stared at her with blank, uncomprehending expressions. Peppa discovered an old Christmas book hidden in the attic, its pages yellowed and torn. As she read about Santa Claus and Christmas trees, the images began to move and whisper, showing her glimpses of what the world had lost. The book felt ice cold in her hands, and shadows danced across its pages. That evening, Peppa heard strange sounds coming from the chimney. A figure emerged covered in ash and soot, but this wasn't the jolly Santa from stories. This creature had hollow eyes and a twisted smile, carrying an empty sack that seemed to devour light itself. The dark Santa spoke in a voice like winter wind, explaining that Christmas had been forgotten because people stopped believing. Without faith and joy, the holiday had withered and died, leaving only the shadow of what once brought happiness to the world. As the creature moved through the house, everything it touched turned gray and lifeless. Family photos lost their color, toys crumbled to dust, and even the warmth seemed to drain from the air. The forgotten Christmas was consuming everything that once brought joy. Peppa realized that she was the only one who still remembered Christmas, making her the last hope to restore the lost holiday. But the dark Santa warned that forgetting was easier than remembering, and soon she too would lose all memory of Christmas forever. The shadow creature began to fade away, taking with it the final traces of Christmas magic. As it disappeared, Peppa felt her own memories starting to slip away, the warmth of Christmas morning becoming nothing more than a distant, fading dream. In the end, Peppa sat alone in her room, staring at an empty calendar that no longer showed any special dates. Christmas had been completely erased from the world, and now even she couldn't remember what she had lost, leaving only a cold emptiness where joy once lived. A cheerful morning filled Peppa Pig's house with excitement as the family prepared for their special train journey to visit Granny and Grandpa Pig. Peppa and George packed their favorite toys while Mummy and Daddy Pig gathered their luggage. The train station appeared busy and welcoming, with colorful banners and friendly announcements echoing through the platform. The old steam train arrived with thick black smoke billowing from its chimney, much darker and more ominous than usual. The locomotive looked ancient and weathered, with rust stains covering its once bright paint. As the family boarded, they noticed the train conductor was unusually tall and thin, wearing a tattered uniform that seemed decades old. Inside the train compartment, the seats were covered in faded fabric that smelled of decay and dampness. The windows were grimy and difficult to see through, casting strange shadows across the interior. Other passengers sat motionless in their seats, their faces pale and expressionless, staring blankly ahead without acknowledging the Pig family's presence. As the train began to move, Peppa noticed the conductor's reflection in the window showed something terrifying. His face was skeletal with glowing red eyes. When she turned to look directly at him, he appeared normal again, but his smile was too wide and his teeth unnaturally sharp. The train's whistle sounded like a tortured scream echoing through the countryside. The landscape outside began to change dramatically as they traveled deeper into unknown territory. The green hills turned gray and barren, with twisted dead trees reaching toward the darkening sky. Strange fog rolled across the ground, and in the distance, Peppa could see abandoned buildings and rusted machinery scattered across the desolate terrain. The conductor announced their next stop in a voice that seemed to come from the depths of hell itself. His words echoed unnaturally through the train cars, and when he spoke, the other passengers turned their heads in perfect unison to stare at the pig family. Their eyes had become completely black, and their mouths hung open in silent screams. Daddy Pig tried to pull the emergency brake, but the handle came off in his hands, revealing that it was never connected to anything. The train began to accelerate rapidly, swaying dangerously on the tracks as it plunged deeper into the nightmare landscape. The conductor's laughter filled the air, a sound like grinding metal and breaking bones. The train cars began to transform around them, with the walls becoming organic and pulsing like living tissue. Strange tentacles emerged from the ceiling and floor, reaching toward the terrified family. The other passengers revealed their true forms, hollow shells of former travelers who had been consumed by the monster train's eternal hunger. Peppa realized they were trapped aboard a ghost train that collected souls for its demonic conductor. Through the windows, she could see countless other trains in the distance, all carrying their own cargo of trapped souls through the endless wasteland. The conductor appeared in their compartment, his human disguise completely gone, revealing a nightmarish entity with multiple arms and a face that shifted between different victims he had claimed. He explained that they would join his eternal collection, traveling forever through the realm of the damned, never to see their loved ones again. As the train plunged into a tunnel that seemed to lead straight into the Earth's core, the pig family huddled together, knowing their cheerful journey had become a one-way trip to hell. The monster's laughter echoed through the darkness as the train disappeared into the abyss, carrying its newest victims to their eternal doom. A bright morning filled Peppa's house with cheerful sunlight. Peppa complained about a toothache that bothered her all night. Mummy Pig examined her mouth and noticed a small cavity. Daddy Pig suggested visiting the new dentist, Dr. Fong. The family drove to the dental clinic in an old Victorian building. The building looked imposing with dark windows and weathered stone. A rusty sign read, Dr. Fong Dental Services. The parking lot was strangely empty. Inside the waiting room, outdated magazines lay scattered on dusty tables. The fluorescent lights flickered intermittently. The pale receptionist with hollow eyes barely looked up. She handed them forms with trembling hands. Dr. Fong emerged from his office, appearing normal with his white coat. He was tall and thin with pale skin and dark circles. His smile seemed forced, revealing slightly sharp teeth. His handshake was ice-cold and unnaturally strong. Peppa followed Dr. Fong into the dimly lit treatment room. The dental chair looked ancient with leather straps hanging from its sides. Medical instruments gleamed menacingly on the tray. The room smelled of antiseptic mixed with something rotten. As Peppa settled into the chair, Dr. Fong's demeanor began changing. His movements became predatory, and his eyes glowed yellow. He adjusted the overhead lamp, casting eerie shadows. A low growling sound came from his throat. Dr. Fong picked up an oversized drill that whirred ominously. Sparks flew from its tip. His hands became visibly clawed. Peppa noticed his reflection in the mirror showed something monstrous. The transformation accelerated as Dr. Fong's true nature revealed itself. His face elongated into a snout with razor-sharp fangs. His eyes became yellow with vertical pupils. His white coat tore, revealing gray, scaly skin. Peppa screamed as leather straps fastened around her wrists. Daddy Pig burst through the door and grabbed a heavy dental lamp. He swung it at the creature, causing it to stumble. Mummy Pig and George rushed in to help free Peppa from the chair. The family ran from the building with monster roars echoing behind them. They drove home in shocked silence. When police arrived at the clinic later, they found it completely abandoned. From that day forward, Peppa learned to research dentists carefully. The family found a kind, normal dentist who fixed her tooth safely. The experience taught them to trust their instincts when something feels wrong. A bright morning filled Peppa's house with cheerful sunlight. The family enjoyed breakfast when the doorbell rang unexpectedly. A mysterious delivery man stood at the door, holding a large ornate box wrapped in dark purple paper. His face was hidden beneath a wide-brimmed hat, and he disappeared without a word. The family gathered around the mysterious package in the living room. The box felt unusually cold to the touch, with strange symbols etched into its wooden surface. When Peppa shook it gently, something inside rattled with an eerie, hollow sound that made everyone uncomfortable. Peppa carefully unwrapped the dark purple paper, revealing an antique wooden box with intricate carvings. Inside, nestled in black velvet, lay a beautiful porcelain doll with long flowing hair and an elaborate Victorian dress. The doll's emerald green eyes seemed almost too perfect, and its painted smile was unsettling. That afternoon, Peppa played with the doll in her bedroom, naming it Victoria. She brushed its silky hair and had tea parties with her other toys. But as hours passed, Peppa noticed Victoria's eyes seemed to follow her movements around the room, and occasionally she could swear she saw the doll blink. As evening approached, Peppa insisted on bringing Victoria to dinner. During the meal, an uncomfortable silence filled the dining room. Mummy Pig noticed the temperature had dropped significantly, and their breath became visible in the suddenly cold air. Victoria sat propped in her chair, watching every family member with unsettling intensity. That night, Peppa placed Victoria on her bedside table before sleep. As darkness fell, strange things began happening throughout the house. Lights flickered on and off, doors creaked open by themselves, and cold drafts swept through rooms despite closed windows. The next morning, the family woke to find their house in complete disarray. Furniture had been moved, pictures hung crooked on walls, and frost covered the windows. Peppa played happily with Victoria as if nothing happened, but George refused to enter the same room as the doll. Grandpa Pig arrived for his weekly visit and immediately sensed something wrong. His experience taught him to recognize supernatural disturbances, and he knew the doll was the source of trouble. He examined Victoria carefully, noting strange symbols carved into the base of her porcelain head, ancient markings used to bind spirits to objects. Grandpa Pig explained that Victoria was possessed by a malevolent entity. As if responding to his words, Victoria's head slowly turned toward him, her emerald eyes flashing with otherworldly anger. The temperature plummeted, and shadows began moving independently of their sources throughout the room. Working together, the family wrapped Victoria in a blessed cloth from Grandpa Pig's collection. As soon as the doll was covered, supernatural disturbances ceased and warmth returned. They placed the wrapped doll in a sealed box and drove to a remote location, burying it deep underground with protective symbols. Returning home, the Pig family felt relief and safety they hadn't experienced since the doll's arrival. Peppa was initially sad to lose her beautiful toy, but gradually understood that some gifts come with hidden dangers. The incident taught them to be cautious of unexpected presents and trust their instincts when something feels wrong.